This is Joey Cheramonti from Koyo, and you're listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we're back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, we have the return of Ryan Savitski of One Step Closer. Last time Ryan was on the show was a while ago. We were still the Northeast Scene podcast. It was episode 30-something, maybe? I don't know, 40? Who knows? One Step Closer was just gearing up to release This Place You Know, their debut LP, and a lot has changed since then, and we cover all of that with Ryan. The band knew we were eagerly awaiting them to fully embrace their new melodic sound, and they gave it to us with the 2023 EP, Songs For the Willow, and that vision has been fully realized with the recent release of their latest record, All You Embrace, and we do a deep dive into that record. Ryan tells us everything that's going on with him. We talk about the ups and downs of being in a touring band. It's really great to catch up with Ryan. I just feel a lot of kinship in the things he's saying and doing. He got started with music so young, 17, like a lot of my friends did, and now he's 24, and things are really starting to come together, and a lot of my friends in bands, same timeline. And I was 24 when I first got into a band, so talking to him just brought back a lot of great memories. It's a great conversation. And it is coming up shortly, but first, listen, everybody, here at The New Scene, we have begun the push to 300 Apple Podcast and Spotify reviews. We have 215 on Apple Podcast, and we have 259 on Spotify, so I need everybody's help. Open up The New Scene on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and hit that 5-star button. It only takes a minute, and it'll really help us out in the grand world of ratings and podcast standings and all of that stuff. If you leave a review on Apple Podcasts or feedback on Spotify, I read those at the end of the show during the New Scene Community Hour. You can also follow the New Scene on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at New Scene Pod. We've also got a store at Death Wish Inc. with a fine selection of shirts, so go pick one up. And don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. Now, there's very exciting news at Iodine this week. Iodine Recordings welcomes Piebald to the label. Iodine and Piebald are partnering together to work on a number of reissue projects, as well as, get this, new music. Remember when Travis was on the show and they didn't know if they were going to write any new music and he still wasn't sure about it? Well, it's happening. And I, for one, am very excited. More details are coming. You can catch Piebald this October at Best Friends Forever Fest in Las Vegas. And now that Piebald is part of Iodine Recordings, I am happy to say, hey, you're part of it. The debut LP from Love Letter is up for pre-order. The record is called Everyone Wants Something Beautiful. And they just released another new single from the record. It's called Meds and Taxes. Make sure you check it out. And do it soon. The new LP from Her Head's on Fire is called Strange Desires, and that's out July 19th. You can pre-order that now. Also, Hot Water Music and Quicksand will be joined by Tim Barry on the next leg of that tour, and that kicks off June 13th. Check any one of their pages or the Iodine page for a full list of dates. That is an excellent bill. Also, don't forget to show some support for our sponsor for the month of June, and that sponsor is Persistent Vision Records. Persistent Vision is an independent label based in Richmond, Virginia, and it's home to releases from Page 99, Abak, Masa Nera, Respire, Prisoner, and a whole bunch more. They just put out some new releases in June that are available for order now. Abak, the Insania LP, Respire, Denouement, and the accompanying Memorial LP. That's 2 LPs. You gotta get that. And Farn, the Departure of Consciousness LP. That's a 10-year anniversary reissue. They've also got some pre-orders that just launched this past Friday. Blind Girls, An Exit Exists. This is the new LP from Australia's Blind Girls. It's 12 new songs of chaotic, mathy, screamo-inspired hardcore. They've got a US tour in July, including East Coast dates with Heavenly Blue, and an appearance at New Friends Fest. That's the fest that the guys from Respire put on. You've got to go to that if you're in Toronto. The first single, Dissonance, will be streaming on June 7th. Private Hell just put out the Days of Wrath EP on Persistent Vision. Make sure you listen to that. My favorite track is Progress. If you're a fan of fast, straight-ahead hardcore punk, you'll dig this. Also, Dark Days, Bright Nights. This is the fest curated by Persistent Vision and Mike Taylor of Page 99. Dark Days, Bright Nights is 3 days of DIY music, and that takes place September 13th through 15th in Richmond, Virginia. We've got performances from Page 99, Soul Glow, Thou, Portrayal of Guilt, Young Widows, Pygmy Lush, and a bunch more. Tickets are on sale now at thebroadberry.com. A lot of great stuff on Persistent Vision. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you pick something up. You can order online at persistentvisionrecords.com and deathwishinc.com. And don't forget to follow Persistent Vision on Instagram at Persistent Vision Records. Okay, so check back in with me in segment 3 after the conversation with Ryan. It was a busy weekend of gigs for me. I'll catch up. We'll talk about how we're doing. We'll check in. We'll do it all. But right now, we are going to speak to Ryan Savitski of One Step Closer. Enjoy. All right. We are here now with Ryan Savitski. Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me back. I'm stoked to be here. Should be sick.
Yes, it's great to have you here, Ryan. Look, a lot has happened since you were last on the show. One Step Closer put out the excellent This Place You Know. You also put out songs for The Willow. We've got All You Embrace coming out this year, which I'm very excited about. You just finished up the tour of a lifetime. One Step Closer, Anxious, and Koyo. And look, we're going to cover all of that and more. But first, I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
Dude, I'm good. Wow, it's actually crazy. I didn't think it was that long since I've last been on here. That's actually insane. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm finally home. You know, all the tour shenanigans are all done, and everything, all the merch is back, and you know the van is back at the rental spot, and I'm just hanging out now, which is awesome. So I've just been kind of getting used to being back home and doing everyday life kind of things, and just kind of getting everything situated here now since I'm going to be home for the next 6 weeks.
Are you still in Pringle, PA?
I am still in Pringle, PA. You know it.
How, this is something I was thinking about in terms of you and the band and the 2021 record, This Place You Know. I think some of the themes around This Place You Know are just like not being home, not being as happy with your hometown, it not feeling like home anymore. That's part of it, right? Part of that record?
Yeah, I think it was a big part of that record. I think mainly, looking back on that time period was mainly because we were stuck home for so long with the pandemic and stuff like that. I think it really created this, I don't know, there was nothing to do, and there was nothing here for us. We felt like we've kind of outgrown this place a little bit. And yeah, I don't think that was entirely true, but I think some aspects still hold true.
That's interesting. So it was just a feeling at the time.
Yeah, I think everything that we've ever done, and I was just talking to someone about this recently, actually. I think every record, every piece of music that we put out is always time stamped to a specific time period of our lives of we were feeling this kind of way at this time, or we were influenced by this heavily at this time, or, we're really inspired or something. And I think it's cool because then when we listen to the records back and we're like, oh, do you remember this? And like what we were going through then, or this time period then, and you were living here or I was here. And, I think all that kind of stuff is really cool, especially for us who's, when we're looking back on the music and trying to reconnect with it in a way, it's cool to have a little piece of a story to it,
Big time. Yeah, it's and with musicians, you're usually behind, right? I'm working on a record right now, and I'm singing about stuff that mostly happened 3 years ago or even longer than that. So you're typically behind on what the content is. But for this show as well, I'm glad I have a weekly timestamp of my life for the past 4 years. Like, you were coming back on the show, so I went back and listened to the old episode, and I was like, oh man, it was still like serious pandemic. You weren't allowed outside yet. Things hadn't opened back up yet. This was February of 21. So yeah, things didn't start opening up until like spring of that year.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's kind of cool to look back and kind of think about, at least even for me personally, like where I was at that time period. Like, I was just done finishing school like not too long before that, like finishing like 2 years at college. And, we just did our first European tour, like right before the pandemic. And now, like, we're literally announcing a European tour in 2 days that like this will be now our fifth time going out there. Like
Whoa.
it's just kind of crazy, like looking back that far and being like, wow, we didn't even have the first LP out yet. Like we weren't even on Run for Cover yet. Or like, I think February was like right around when we signed to Run for Cover, but like, obviously we weren't talking about it or anything like that. So it was just like, yeah, it's kind of cool to like hear you bring that back up, because it's that takes me back a little bit. It's crazy.
Right. Now, this I'm asking for my own just personal interest. Was this place ever going to be called Lead to Gray, or was it always going to be called This Place You Know?
It was always going to be called This Place You Know. That was the one title that when we were talking about like naming the record, that like it was literally like, I think one of the first ones, and we were just like, I don't think there's going to be anything that fits this record better than that,
Yeah.
We did that little promo with Lead to Gray and the Turning Point cover on it. And yeah, I think we knew that song was going to be on the record for sure. But yeah, just I think This Place just really fits that record perfectly. Even still now, I think it like, I can't think of anything better for that.
It does. Well, I'm just asking for my own personal interest, because when I listened back, I kept calling the new record Lead to Gray, but I think that's because of the single name. So there you go.
Yeah.
Correction made, everybody. So that's one piece of things I wanted to ask about. The other being, how do you feel when you come home from tour? Is it weird still? Is it depressing at all? I remember the very first tour I came home from. I still lived with my parents, and I came home, and I was home at their house in suburban Pennsylvania, and I just felt weird. I was like, I don't know what to do. What do I do now that I've experienced all of this? I don't feel home. Like, what's next? You've done a lot of tours at this point. How do you feel now when you come home?
I definitely feel a little bit more relieved when I come home now. I think it's kind of nice to come back, I think because of the fact that after the pandemic, we went so hard touring. Like we've been touring nonstop pretty much since like fall of 2021. And now it is the spring of 2024. And I'm like, man, sometimes I just want to be home, and as much as I love touring and I love getting to see my friends and getting to do the thing, like we've toured so hard the last 2.5 years. And I think that I definitely appreciate coming home and seeing my friends here, seeing the fam. My girlfriend lives here and stuff. So it's just nice to come home and have like a big reunion with everybody and just get to relax a little bit. It's very low stress in Wilkes-Barre, and like it's very chill. So I get to do kind of the things that I normally do, which is just like, sometimes I'll work odds and end jobs here and there when I'm at home, or just, I'm working on music, hanging out with friends and just skating and like kind of just, doing what I love to do. And it's just really low stress. So it's nice.
That is nice. You said your girlfriend lives there. Does she live there with you or in the same town?
She lives in Harvey's Lake, which is like 20 minutes away from me. She lives on a super nice lake, and we just like hang out here in the summer and just like, swim and do the thing. It's awesome. I love it up here. So it's really cool. I'm actually up here right now. and we're just hanging out. So it's been a good day so far.
Nice. And give us an overview of what's been going on with you for the past 3 years since you've been on the show. Not related to the band, but to you personally. Give us the highlight reel.
Well, in the last 3 years, I mean, dude, honestly, not much has really changed. I'm still kind of doing the same thing. I'm still doing the band and, writing music all the time and just trying to enjoy the little things in life a little bit more, I think. Um, and I think as I've gotten, as the 3 years of age have come on top of me, I think I've been feeling a little bit more grateful for like the little things, like I said, and just like seeing my friends when I can and things like that. So, I mean, yeah, nothing really has changed other than just like still grinding the same things that I've been doing and just trying to be as productive and work as hard as I possibly can.
I like that. Yeah, even the first time I talked to you, I was impressed with how focused you seem at such a young age, because I was not. In fact, I was thinking about this again today. One Step Closer got started when you were what, 16?
Yeah, I was 17, I think, when we started.
Yeah, so the band gets started at 17 and just keeps going. And, when you and Brian were on the show last time, you said that people observed you take the band really seriously and you put a lot of work into the songs. So I was thinking about you guys, and I was thinking about bands I grew up with, and I was like, man, I wish I would have had that. Imagine being 18 years old and being focused and working towards a goal. Like, I don't think I developed that until I was like 35. It took a while, but I got here.
I mean, I think it's different for everybody with that kind of thing. As a kid, even, I was just always very driven. I have a problem with like just sitting around and not having things to work on. Like, I'm not a good, like, oh, I'm just going to chill today and not do anything. Like, that's my enemy, straight up. Like, I'm just not good at that. I always had to have something to work on, something to be like, some kind of goal to be achieving. And I don't really know why. It's just part of my personality, and it's just part of like my life that I've always like, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. But, with that, I've always just been so driven with everything with the band, and I just always immerse myself 100% into that and just give it my all as much as I possibly can. And I think we've, had a lot of cool things happen with the band because of having people that are just driven and just ready to do what we got to do and like be creative and always kind of be working nonstop. Like, I see like some of our peers and bands that, we look up to that are the same way, and to see like their success and the things that they've done is like, it's inspiring.
Good that you have people on the same page as you to work with too, right? Because there's been times where I was driven or wanted to be driven, but I don't know, the band falls apart, or I feel like no one's on the same page as me. But I mean, you've been working with tons of people on the same page as you over the years.
Yeah, I think especially now, like Ross Coleman and I are like very much very tight, and we're very like on the same page with everything for the most part, to the point where it's just like we know what needs to be done, we know like who could carry it out the best, and we all just kind of like work hard and do the thing. And like, I think everybody is super stoked on how far the band has come, and like is super like ready to keep pushing it as much as we could, just because like this is like our lives, like this is like everything we could have wanted. And now we're at the point where it's like we've gotten to see the world, and we've gotten to do everything that we've wanted to do, and like let's just like keep seeing what else we could do with it. Like we don't really know anything else at this point because we've been so locked in with this for so long. It's like I understand now like why some bands just never give it up, and never want to have that day of like, yeah, we're calling it quits or whatever, even if they're like 10 LPs deep, because it's just like it's just all and like it's all you could really like work on for your life.
Yeah, I get annoyed when people are like, oh, that band is still together, or oh, they're still putting out records. But it's like, yeah, all right. Sometimes people say that stuff to like bigger bands who are making a career out of it and still doing good things. And that's especially annoying. But any band who's still doing it because they love it and they're out there and they're playing and people are connecting with it, any number of people, why would that be a bad thing? Why should they stop?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying too. It's like, and for some people, like it takes a lot longer for your craft or your business or whatever you're doing to catch on with people. There's people that have been doing, even like locally, there's like businesses that now are finally starting to take off here that like they've been doing it for like 15 years. That's like telling this person, 6 years into their business or into their craft that like, yeah, you probably should just give up now because like people don't really seem to care anymore or they never did. It's like, I don't know. I think it's just like, if you love what you're doing, why stop? Just continue doing it if that makes you happy. And like, whether you're making money or you're not making money or you're, rich as hell or poor as hell, it doesn't really matter. As long as you're doing what you love, like make the best out of your life and just do what makes you happy.
Exactly. Well, you just got finished a crazy tour. One Step Closer, Anxious, Koyo. And when I saw that announced, I just instantly went and bought a ticket. So
Awesome.
first of all,
Thank
great
you,
show.
man.
It's the best time I've ever seen you. Yeah, it was wait, that was my third time seeing you. But yeah, amazing set. You've come a long way. And tell us about the tour. Like that must have been an amazing tour to be on.
Yeah, it was personally one of my favorite tours we've ever done. And we had this idea for a long time. Like we did our first full US with Anxious the summer of 2019 when those Have Heart shows were happening. We did Sound and Fury and we're like, oh, let's just like root a whole tour around it. Like Grady and I booked the entire tour ourselves and it was super like DIY, try to find whoever could book us wherever. And looking back on that tour and then now 2024 and like it's us Anxious and our friends in Koyo as well, like rotating headliner every night. And there's just like so many people coming out to the shows and like the tour being like really successful. It's just like, I don't know. It was this very surreal feeling to be back on the road with some of my best friends and just kind of being like, yeah, look at all the hard work that we did over the last couple of years. And now like, look how much it's paying off and look how many people are here to see us and look how many people are, singing the words to like our songs. And like, I don't know, it was a very surreal experience. And I am super, super stoked that we were finally able to do something like that because I think it's been something that has been long awaited, at least for me.
How does it work with who headlines? Do you switch off nights depending on where you're at? How does that work?
We were just alternating every single night pretty much. So like every night, up until the last 3 shows, it was just like you would get whoever would headline. You know what I mean? Just whoever was slotted that night for the headliner. And then for the last 3, we would do like we wanted to headline in Philly, and then Anxious did Boston, and then Koyo wanted to headline New York, obviously, Long Island and stuff like that. So like everybody kind of got to headline their respective, cities that they were like really stoked to be a part of and like, a place that was like part of their scene and stuff like that. And it was incredible. Every show, especially the last 3 were all just, they're perfect, honestly. And yeah, so we rotated every single night and, some nights it might've been an Anxious night and they might've played first. Or some nights it might have been a One Step Closer night, and then we might have actually headlined that night, So it was all kind of random, and I think it made it fun because everybody would stay for like every single set pretty much, and like there was like a very minimal amount of walkout for like headliner pretty much every single night, I would say. So I think it was a smart move on our end to do it that way.
It was, because I was like, this show, I want to see every single band. This is great.
Yeah, and I think there was honestly like a good amount of people that were kind of feeling the same way. I feel like if you're an OSC fan, you probably like Anxious or Koyo or both, and if you're an Anxious fan, it's, vice versa, like all that kind of stuff. Like, I think we all kind of sell a similar ticket if we're all together, like for the most part. And then some nights you might have like some outliers who maybe have seen one band on a support tour somewhere and they were really only there for them. But I think those are the type of people that are going to stay for the entire show regardless, because they're just some, random normal concert goers that maybe don't really know what like the hardcore scene or like our like music scene is really like. So they're just a little bit more interested,
I liked how you said at the beginning of your set, you told everyone like push the pit to the back, push it to the back, everybody move up front. And I liked that because there wasn't like a really violent pit. It was just people kind of jumping around, having fun, and people stage diving. It was a good vibe. Is it generally pretty much like that at your shows?
Yeah, I would say for the most part. I think sometimes we still get like a little bit like, we have some like more moshy parts and stuff in our songs in comparison to like Anxious and Koyo, I would say. So I think sometimes people tend to like get a little afraid to like be up front. But
Yeah.
for that show, I was like, we could still do both, especially like there could still be 6 rows of people up front and then whoever wants to hit the pit in the back. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of generally how I would like most One Step Closer shows to always be, is just like the people up front stage diving, the people that like want to sing along and know the words and stuff like that up front, and the people that are just strictly like pitters still have a place like, a couple of rows back from the front. They have their whole open space, but I think it's cool that our band is able to kind of do that, because it kind of brings a little bit more of a dynamic into the situation where, there's people stage diving, there's people pitting and singing along like literally all at the same time. I think that kind of just makes a cool, like, enclosed chaos, I guess you could kind of say, at the show, which I think makes for a good time,
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way it should be. And I talked about this on an earlier episode of the podcast, but this is the way it should be. I don't like when there's a giant horseshoe and I can't get close to the band because, like, there's a couple guys just clobbering everybody. And, I like to be close to the front to get a good angle, because I usually go live for a song or two. So I like the setup. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, I think it makes it the most fun, at least for the performer and for like people in like the attendee, I guess. It's like, if you want to get involved in the pit, there's a whole section for you. You know what I mean? But if you want to stage dive and you want to just sing along, there's a whole section for you as well. And I think those kinds of shows are like what I at least grew up going to see, like with Title Fight and bands like that. When I was, coming into the scene, I was like, wow, there's so many kids stage diving. There's so many kids up front, but then there's like kids moshing really hard in the back, or doing whatever. And I think like we're seeing a huge resurgence of like stage diving, which I think is very beneficial for like, OSC, Anxious, and Koyo, especially being more like sing-along-y kind of bands. I want the stage dives, that's the kind of stuff that gets me the most stoked when I'm playing or even at a show, attending a show. Like, my favorite thing to do is stage dive. I'd rather stage dive than mosh personally. And like, yeah, I think that kind of setup was for the most part at every single show on that tour, except for maybe like one or two where maybe there was a little bit more maybe more kids wanting to mosh than stage dive.
Let me ask you this: as a performer, I witnessed this move more than once at your gig in New York City. Okay, so someone will run up on stage and grab the singer's hand and like pull it towards themselves to sing along, right? And then maybe jump off the stage. I that doesn't seem like a great move. How do you feel about that?
Dude, I kind of hate that move, to be honest, but honestly, like, I'll just give you the mic if you want it that bad. Like, I think it gets me stoked that someone is wanting to sing that badly and like is super hyped, but at the same time it kind of feels like a main character kind of moment for that person, and they're like trying to
Right.
like, you know, kind of be that kind of way. But at the same point, I'm like, bro, if you want to sing, just sing it then, and I'll jump off the stage. You know what I mean? Like, I'll go have fun. It's fine. I'm totally cool with, whatever. But I do get a little weird, especially when they're just like screaming gibberish into the mic. That's never fun for anyone, I don't think.
Yeah, I think the singer needs to control it. You'll hold out the mic, right? People can sing along, but I witnessed several singers being not so stoked about it because someone would run up behind them and grab their hand and pull the mic towards them, or there's that move, or people just being on stage way too long. Like you said, it's a
Yes.
main character moment. Look, the show's not about you. Just get up there, jump off, and then when you hold out the mic, you can sing along, right?
Yeah. And I think that's why there's been a lot of moments over history of people just like getting the boot off the stage because they're just on the stage too long, or someone else just kind of shoving them off the stage, or, doing whatever. Cause it's just, man, you're up there for 30 seconds, like contemplating whether you should dive or not. You just need to get up there and do it, whether there's someone there to catch you or not, really, you committed,
Right, right. The
so
stages at these shows aren't so high that you'll get seriously injured. I think we'll be fine.
yeah, you'll be all right.
So I saw you post recently, you always wanted to play a sold out show at the Unitarian Church, and that happened on this past run, right?
Yes, it did.
That's amazing.
Dude, it was pretty incredible. We've played there once. No, we played there twice over the years. One show not sold out, and then we played there with Drug Church, which I think was close to sold out. If not, maybe it was. But since I was a kid, have always wanted to be like, yeah, we're gonna headline the church, we're gonna sell out the church, and we're gonna have like a crazy set there. Like, I remember going to see, when I was 14, 15, going to see some of my favorite bands at the church and making the trip down. And it was pretty much exactly that. I will say it was an insane set. Everyone had crazy sets, and the room was sold out and insanely packed. And there were so many people up front and so many people singing the words. And it just I felt a big, I don't know, sense of like Pennsylvania pride that night, really. And we put on so hard for Wilkes-Barre and just Pennsylvania as a whole. And it was really cool to see Pennsylvania, putting on for us that hard as well. It was definitely like a full circle moment for everyone in the band. And yeah, it was one of my favorite nights of the tour for sure.
I love that. Isn't that crazy when you envision something like that and then it actually happens? I'm just happy that you guys got to do that.
Yeah, it was one of those things, like I said, since we started the band, it was like all I want to do is tour and play cool shows. And then I didn't think that the band would ever, get to the point of being able to, sell out a show, let alone, put that many people in a show in Philly that care about our band and stuff like that. And it was really awesome to kind of have that moment, and it just felt rewarding, I guess, in a way, because of how much the band has been grinding and doing so many support tours and doing this and that. Doing this entire trio tour just felt like a treat for everybody, because all three bands have really been on the move and just playing to people that may not give a shit, or trying to pull new fans and like stuff like that on these support tours. And it was nice to finally play to people that like were there for us.
When I spoke to you last, you were still in Anxious, and Little Green House had not come out yet. Are you on that record?
Yes, I am on that record. I am. I recorded some rhythm guitars on that record. Dante did a lot of rhythms and leads as well. I was in the studio with them for like a week. I wasn't there for the full recording, and I don't remember why exactly. But yeah, that was the last thing. Well, we did that, and then we did that Blood White cover, the Elliott Smith song. We covered that, and we recorded that, I believe, either right at the start of the pandemic or right before it. and that was the last thing I played on with them. And then we pretty much, I think it was 2022 summer that we were kind of like, yeah, this is too much doing both bands and like having you in and out. And I was like, I don't think I could handle doing this, like for this long anymore. Cause that year I did a drug church tour for 6 weeks. And then the last show we played in San Francisco, right after the show, they drove me to the San Francisco airport, and I flew to Dallas, Texas to meet up with Anxious for another 3.5 weeks after that. So I was on the road for almost 10 weeks straight. And at that point, I was like, I don't think I could do this because it was just too much. I was at the point where no matter how much I slept, I would wake up so exhausted and just feeling kind of a little insane, just being like, wow, I haven't slept good or like ate good in like straight up 9 weeks. Like my body was really, really taking a toll on it. And when I finally got home, I was just like, I don't think I could do 2 tours back to back like that without some kind of break, So we kind of ended up splitting ways, and this was really the first tour and first time I got to spend any kind of time with them since then, really, other than maybe like one day here or there. Like I think I would see them every 6 months when I used to see them like literally every 2 weeks,
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You were in Anxious. Grady was in One Step Closer, and you guys had to kind of break off and do your own thing because both bands are taking off.
Yeah, and honestly, there's no hard feelings or anything like that. And even at the time, there was really no hard feelings because I think Grady and I both knew that we were trying to take on too much with how active the bands were trying to be and how active, like we wanted to be on the road, really. And it's a lot to ask of a person to go from one tour to another. Yeah, it just became too much. And I appreciate all my time in Anxious, and I love them. They're like my brothers, um but I love seeing Tommy play with them, and I'm very happy to see Tommy come in and be able to do the thing if like better than I think I was able to, so it's cool to see it.
It must be cool to reflect too and be like, hey, I contributed to Little Greenhouse. That was definitely one of my favorite records of that year. You were in that band. You've got your own band. You're stacking up a lot of great things that you've done already.
Yeah, and I'm honored to be on that record. Honestly, that record was, especially even when I was, hearing the demos of it and we were kind of going back and forth on that kind of stuff, I was like, this record's going to be amazing. And I was like, I'm stoked that I get to be a part of this, and to see now like how popular the songs have gotten off that record particularly. I don't know, it makes me feel good, no matter what happens next with everything with the bands and stuff like that. I know that those songs mean a lot to a lot of people, and it's cool that I was able to be a part of that at that time period, and I'm happy to have been able to play those songs, on tours with them and stuff like that. So I'm stoked.
So, This Place we talked a little bit about earlier. Who did the cover art for that?
I forget his name exactly. I might be able to find it actually, but he's an artist from Toronto that we just randomly found, and we liked his stuff, and we commissioned him for a hoodie that actually my friend was just wearing like 2 days ago, and I was like, wow, I haven't seen that hoodie in forever. We commissioned him to do this hoodie for our first time in Europe in UK with Turnstile, and then we really liked how it turned out. We liked his artwork so much. We were like, oh, we should just commission him to do the entire thing. So we initially just asked him to do the cover, and then we were like, yo, we're actually doing a gatefold. Could you do the whole inside gatefold and the back cover too? And he commissioned it, and he was like, he gave us like such a crazy good deal, like for doing all this stuff, like on the fly and just like on a really tight time period for us and stuff. And Yeah, it turned out amazing. I still really love the way that turned out, and I think it fits the record really well.
Yeah, I just go back and look at it sometimes because I mean, I love the artwork and the bridge. You see the bridge coming back into Wilkes-Barre, and I remember talking to you and Brian, and I think you said you were driving back from Jersey all the time, and it would, you come over that bridge and everything turns gray because it's Wilkes-Barre and that's how it is there. And just the whole subject matter of the record, the whole presentation, I think is really great.
Yeah, it is very true. Like for some reason, once you hit like the Pocono Mountains, it's very much like cloudy all the time. It's literally cloudy here right now. I'm looking outside. But it's like very much in, especially like, you know, late fall into like early spring, it's very cloudy and like kind of just like smoggy kind of here. And like for example, we had a day, like a couple of days right after Christmas, where it was like 2 weeks straight of no sun. It was just cloudy for 2 weeks straight. And they were just like, this is like one of the longest, you know, spans of time of like no sun that we've had here in like the last like 15 years. But it was just like, 2 weeks straight of it. And it was pretty depressing for sure. But you don't even realize really if you live here long enough, because you're just like, yeah, I'm just kind of used to this. Like this is just kind of how it is. But I actually remember the artist's name who did it. His name is Jeffrey Cam. He's a Toronto artist. I think his Instagram is Cam Jam, I believe. But yeah, check out his stuff. He's really incredible. He's since done some other artwork as well for bands. I think he did maybe like a Modern Color EP or like some shirt designs for them or something like that. I remember seeing. So pretty cool.
So Brian, or BT as you called him, not in the band anymore.
Yes, BT. He's currently he's about to move out to Pittsburgh because he got accepted to Pitt's dental school, which is really exciting. So yeah, at the time I think he was like kind of on a crossroads of like whether he wanted to like pursue dental school, because that was like his lifelong dream, was to do dental school and do that kind of stuff, or do the band. And I think he was like in a period of like a little bit of like I feel like there's a little bit of resentment towards the band because maybe he necessarily wasn't happy with like how things like were going, and like he was like stuck in between like touring and doing that and whatnot. So like he is now, doing just dental school, and we're still doing the band stuff, but like we're all still on good terms, and like he's our friend, and like I still keep up with him fairly often as well. But yeah, he's doing really well. I'm super stoked for him. And yeah, so I think he's moving there in the summer, which is cool.
Nice. I was hoping you guys were still friends because I remember, you met on that trip, and that's how the band started. And I was thinking about him because I listened to the previous episode with you guys again recently, and yeah, I remember he talked about he was doing like water purification or something like that, and he would get pure water from the mountains and then purify it in a lab and leave it for teachers at his university. And during the episode, I was like, man, I really want to try that. And I heard it again, and I was like, man, I really want to try that water.
Yeah, dude, he was always on some like crazy, doing some really crazy like biochem kind of stuff, or just like biology kind of stuff, because he was still in school at the time for so long. And like, he was always just like really fascinated by that kind of thing. So it was awesome to, just kind of see him follow his passion and do his thing. And like I said, like everyone's super stoked for him. We're all really proud of him. He's doing a really good job with everything. He was doing like his family owns a jewelry business. So, and like have a really nice jewelry store down outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania. So he was working there for a while, and he was like custom making jewelry and practicing his like, his skills with all these different kinds of tools and like all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it's like he's been killing it. It's really awesome to see him like doing so well.
He sounds like one of those guys who can just do anything. Like when I went back and heard the water purification thing, I was like, I bet he has some kind of interesting career he's working on now. And that's the case.
Yeah, dude, he is good at everything. He's like anything like that. He was always really good at school and like really good with like technical things like that. He picked up the bass really fast. Like, he's such a unique dude. I love him to death. He's funny, but like, yeah, he is one of those people that are just kind of good at everything. And I think he's gonna do well in life, honestly. And I'm stoked to watch him do it.
So at what point do we start writing songs for the Willow? That's the 3-song EP that came out last year.
We started doing songs for the Willow like the summer of 2022, and we were wanting to push the band melodically a lot more. I wanted to start singing a little bit more and kind of push that side of the band because we've been doing hints of it for so long through like all the records and stuff like that, and we were kind of just wanting to see what people would think if we kind of continued that direction of like being more melodic. So we wrote 3 songs and we recorded them in August of 2022, and then we put out a single. I believe it was like right in the beginning of December, maybe, or something like that of that year. And then, then we put out Songs for the Willow early January, and people were stoked. It seemed like, and like those songs, I think, get some of the best reactions every time we play them, like every show. And even then, like when we first put them out, people were like, I think, really stoked on like that direction. So it definitely gave us a lot more confidence to be like, okay, now we could finally just like push what we've been wanting to do for a while without feeling like we're going to scare people away, really,
Yeah, I loved it when I first heard it. I still love it. And honestly, I expected a lot more material like that on This Place You Know. Like I thought it was going to go in a much more melodic direction, but that wasn't the case until we hit Songs for the Willow. And I think that's a good move because at least when I was coming up, I don't know, maybe my perception is wrong, but it would feel like bands would jump the gun too soon. Like a heavy band I would really like got popular, and then they would become melodic right away without much of a lead up. And then when I was 17, 18 years old, that would make me mad because I felt like I had been abandoned or the band I loved changed too much or whatever. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's not such a big deal now at 40. How old am I? 42 years old. I just respect what everybody does and whatever. But I think you did it the right way. I think you didn't jump too soon. I mean, was that a conscious decision or is that just how things worked out?
No, it was definitely a conscious decision on our end because it's always been in the DNA. We've always been, a melodic hardcore band or, whatever you want to call it. And we've always had, I think, more melodic parts and, parts with singing and stuff like that. And I think we've been wanting to push this for a while. So like, let's do it with 3 songs. And honestly, if it turns out bad or people don't really like it, then we could like either just keep doing it either way because like we're making music that we want to make, or, we could change course and like kind of figure something else out or, do it better, I guess, in a way. But yeah, I mean, we put out the EP, which For Me to You in 2019, and it was very much just melodic hardcore. And we're like, all right, let's do an LP that sounds like this because we didn't expect anything further, as a band. Like we were just hyped to be playing shows and just like getting to see some of the world a little bit, off what we were doing. So then when we put out This Place You Know, we were like, okay, that now fills my like spot of like, okay, we did the melodic hardcore record and like we want to be more melodic. So like let's take it up a notch on the next thing, and then let's take it up a notch on the next thing after that, So that's just kind of like how we've been looking at it. Just we don't want to like, we want to grow and do our thing, but we don't want it to be too much of a leap to like scare people away.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And it doesn't seem like people are scared away. I mean, it seems like everybody's on board with what you've been doing so far. Is that the case?
Yeah, it definitely does seem that way. I feel like even with the 2 newest songs that we put out, we put out 2 songs that were like at least one of them being very much like the softest, most singy song we've ever put out. And it seems like people are really receiving it well. And I almost think that people wanted us to do this in a way a little bit more. I think they were like waiting for us to be like, okay, well, when are they going to just start singing and just start being like fully embrace what the band is, I guess, in a way. And now that we're here, it feels a lot better, like for us as, songwriters and stuff like that, to finally put out something where I'm like, okay, I know we're not holding ourselves back at all. We put everything that we got into this. We're the truest, fullest form of One Step Closer in this new record, and it feels cool. It feels like the right thing, and it finally feels like we aren't, worried about what other people really have to say about it, which I think is cool. Is like it's like empowering, I guess, in a way.
I like that. Because last time you and Brian said we're not holding back at all in terms of This Place You Know. And it sounds like that's the philosophy for All You Embraced as well.
Yeah. Like at that time, like for This Place You Know, like we wrote to like what our musical capabilities were at that point in time. I think we've all grown so much as songwriters and like as musicians, as players, and like now we're at the point where it's like, of course we're going to still continue that philosophy of, we're not going to hold ourselves back. Like everyone's getting better. Everyone's writing different things. Everyone's influenced by different things now. And we're just going to put it all into a record and just be 100% ourselves, and I think that's kind of how we've always been since the very beginning.
What kind of new music have you gotten into over the last few years? When I was 24, let's see. Oh yeah, when I was 24, I guess I was really into post-hardcore, Quicksand, Rival Schools, Seaweed, all that kind of stuff. And then a couple years later, I dove headfirst into post-rock, Mogwai, Explosions in the Sky, Caspian, all that kind of stuff. So that's where I was at around your age. Where are you now? What's some of the new stuff that you've gotten into over the last few years?
I've definitely dove deeper into post-hardcore stuff as well. I've definitely dove deeper into like, I guess you could say like the post-hardcore side of even like Seosin and like Under Oath and bands like that as well. Like kind of, I guess, more like Warped Tour-y kind of bands, like older Warped Tour bands and stuff. I dove deeper into pop music and, more like Phoebe Bridgers kind of like indie kind of stuff as well. And have kind of tried to diversify what I listen to a little bit more. Instead of it just being like, you're only going to listen to hardcore, or like, I'm only going to listen to like, 90s emo stuff or whatever. I've been trying to listen to new things and be influenced by new things, because I think it's cool to like gain influence and write new stuff and keep it fun and new.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing to do is, right, I'll take a band that doesn't sound anything like mine and bring it to the band and say, like, let's try to do something like this. And what comes out of that sounds nothing like the band, but it does sometimes sound like its own awesome and unique thing. Do you find that when you're writing with One Step Closer?
100%. I almost feel like sometimes the idea of what I go into with a song doesn't even turn out to be relatively close to what it was intended to be, but it's so much cooler and so much more fun and like fits almost the band better than what I had hoped it would, So I think with these new influences, especially like Ross is influenced by a lot of different things. Coleman's influenced by a lot of different things. And I think with the three of us primarily being the writers for everything, it all gets to shine in different ways. And I think that's one thing that I really enjoyed about the new record, is that it's felt a lot more like a cooperative thing, instead of it mainly just being like mostly me writing a lot of the songs. Feels like everyone has contributed and, made, put a little bit of their own self into the record and made their mark on it. And I think that's why this newer record feels so, I don't know, it just feels so much like us. instead of it feeling like something else.
All You Embrace. It's coming out May 17th on Run for Cover Records, and it'll be out, everybody, by the time you hear this. So hopefully you purchased it and listened to it and got a chance to see One Step Closer and everything else. But I want to talk a little bit about this record. Well, there's 2 singles out there now as we record this, Giants Despair and Leap Years, which I love. And Giants Despair I listened to multiple times the first time I heard it in a row because it's so good. And you're right, Ryan. I was waiting for One Step Closer to do this, to go in this direction, and it sounds like you're doing it, and I'm very excited about it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm really excited. That's one of my favorite songs that we've ever written. And yeah, I like I was saying earlier, I really think that people were just like, okay, but when are they going to do it? When are they just going to take the step into that? Because we know they're going to do it, but like when, And that's why I think it was kind of, at least from like what I was seeing and, playing it live and stuff like that, it's at this point only been out for like 2 weeks. And we only played it at like the last 5 shows of the tour, and people were already singing along and like knew the words and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I think people are resonating with this one. And I think people are resonating with Leap Years as well. And I don't know, like more than ever, I guess. Because obviously, we've written music and went on tour immediately after things have come out, and it doesn't always, get that kind of reception immediately. And it's cool to see it happening like in real time.
That's got to be the best feeling, to have people singing along to your new singles already, right?
Oh yeah, we put out Leap Years the first day of the trio tour, and that night people already were singing the words to the song, and I was shocked. I was like, people already know this? Like, this is crazy. And honestly, it just progressively got more and more hype every single show, where by the end of the tour, when we played in Brooklyn, that was like one of the craziest songs of the set. And it made me feel really good, just because people are always putting out new music and not having people be stoked because their fans might be way too caught up on like what they did on the record before or 2 records before, So it's just cool to see us evolving and our fans, evolving with us and growing with the music. Cause I think that's a good sign of like, people who are just down with what we're doing.
Yeah, it is a lifetime in a way. It's weird to think about 17 to 24. Like when I think about my life, 17 still in high school, 24, well, I wasn't really doing too much. I got into my first band when I was 24, so that was good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, from thinking back from where I was at 17 and, kind of figuring out the ways of adulthood and, figuring out what I'm going to do with my life a little bit, because I'm about to graduate high school. Like, am I going to go to college? I'm applying to these different colleges and ultimately just end up staying here and doing like a community college thing, because I was so undecisive of what I wanted to do, to now being like, okay, I did 2 years at a community college and then I've just been touring nonstop, since. And now I feel like I know how to actually write a song and actually, be a performer, I guess, in a way. And I just, if you were telling 15-year-old me that like we would be even at this point in time and, have gotten to see and travel the world, like I'd probably laugh at you, just because that's just not what I saw happening for me. I didn't really know what I saw happening for me, but I'm kind of happy. I'm not kind of happy. I'm very happy that this is, the reality and we're here. And, I definitely don't take this for granted, like at all. And I'm very appreciative to have these experiences.
Yeah, everybody seemed really appreciative at that show. A lot of love, a lot of thanking each other and just expressing how great it is to be out with each other, which I like. I like that you guys do that. I like that you say, hey, we always wanted to play a sold out show at the church and we got to do it. And like, nobody's acting too cool. I don't like that. Everybody's just saying what they think and showing appreciation. I like that.
Dude, we like as a whole, everyone in every band feels like why are we here? Like why should we be here? You know, this is like it's almost unbelievable to us because we none of us ever expected that kind of thing to happen. And whether there's 10 people at the show or 500 people at the show or 1,000 people at the show, whatever, like we are just happy that there are people there, and we are happy that our bands were able to pull people out that are stoked and having a good time, you know. And I also, like, on the other hand, of just being on tour with your friends, you know, like it doesn't happen as much as you'd hope it would be, um, as you kind of are trying to grow your band, because you're having to support all these bigger bands, and you know, maybe do tours that you're not necessarily stoked on, but it'll help, you know, further your band and, you know, gain new fans and stuff. So really doing this trio tour was just a big treat for everybody to just have an excuse to hang out and just like play fun shows. And that's, at the end of the day, like all we want to do.
Is there any money in it? Like, do you do okay with merch sales or record sales? Is it just strictly merch sales now? Tell us about touring and being in a band in the modern age.
Well, I mean, at the point that we're at, I feel like we now have like a high enough guarantee for most things and do good on merch, like on tours, that, you know, everyone's taking home money at the end of a tour, like a, you know, enough that's like livable till the next tour, I guess you could say, at the point of where we're at right now. And then by like the end of your time home and you're about to start another tour, you're like, okay, yeah, I definitely need this, and I definitely like could use the money. You know, some of us are working at home, like doing odds and end jobs. Like Coleman works at a screen printing spot when he's at home. Ross and I both work at a screen printing spot sometimes when we're at home as well. And then Ross also works with his family with some stuff, and does like some other like odds and end jobs because he does a lot of the artwork for OSC and like a lot of the merch stuff. So like he'll get commissioned to do like designs and stuff like that for people. But I mean, at the point of where it's at, it's like it's not a livable thing, at least at the level that we're at right now, without some help.
Yeah, the livable band wage seems impossible. I mean, growing up, only one band that I can think of actually made a living off the band. And now it's harder because there's no more CDs. People are buying records more, which I guess is good, but you know, people aren't buying music as much anymore, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's cool that records are coming back and people are buying vinyl. We sell a lot of vinyl at the shows, which is honestly cool. And it gets me more stoked when people are buying the vinyl, because that means that they really like the music. You know what I mean? Less of just like, oh, that's a cool shirt design. Like, I think it means more when people buy the vinyl or buy a CD or, you know, whatever. But yeah, I mean, at the point of where we're at, like right now, you know, it's just like, it's hard to make a livable wage off, you know, what we're doing. We're not able to sell out, you know, 1,500 cap rooms all over the country or, you know, anything like that. Like, and when you get to that point, you're making good money, you know, at that rate. And like, you're able to support yourself and do your thing. But like for years and years and years, it's a grind of like getting to the point of being worth that many tickets and getting a high enough guarantee and like stuff like that. You know, it's you kind of got to eat shit for a long time until maybe one day it kind of works out for you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're young is the time to do that, because at my age now, I have higher standards. But when I was young, I had a bunch of roommates and it didn't take a whole lot to get by.
Yeah. And I think that's the one benefit of, you know, starting the band at such a young age and doing most of the really, really shitty touring and like, you know, the hard times of like really sleeping on so many crappy floors and like, you know, not really knowing where you might stay the next night, or sleeping in the van, or doing whatever, like those nights are kind of behind us, and we did those all when we were like 17 to like 21, or 22. And now, just over the last like 2 years, we're finally at the point where we're like, okay, now a hotel every night, or like, unless we have a homie that we really enjoy staying with, like that's in the budget of the tour, and like it goes a long way when you're touring like that for that period of time, just to be like, wow, I could finally get like a good night's sleep somewhere and feel like recharged and ready to continue for the rest of the tour.
Yeah, if you can not lose a ton of money and get a hotel every night, you've made it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's how we feel right now. We're like, oh yeah, we could afford to do a hotel every night and take home money from a tour. It's like, that's literally like all I've ever wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there an overall theme to the new record, All You Embrace?
Yeah, so the new record kind of channels, like, for the most part, a lot of life change, and a lot of, since we put out the last record, just a lot of change with it, with our friends and families, our relationships with people. I really think being on tour almost permanently for the last 2.5 years have like really impacted our lives in positive and negative ways. And I think that this record kind of channels all that into one, where it's the good and the bad of doing this life, and the good and the bad of growing a little older, and kind of now being more of an adult than we ever really were, and kind of just seeing what those changes look like, and how it affects our lives.
What's some of the good and bad of being on tour all the time? Like, well, for me, I'm mostly, I don't know, I don't socialize a ton, nor do I have a desire to most of the time. I just like to work. I like to constantly be working. This podcast is like a full-time job now. I'm launching a new band this year that takes up most of my other time, but that's what I want to be doing. But sometimes I get sad, like I see people go on trips, or there's these big groups of friends that hang out, and sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I want that. But I socialize enough. And I get out to a lot of shows, and I do what I need to do, right? But what about for you? Like, what's some of the positive and negative?
I think with touring, like, the positives are mainly just like you're getting to do the thing that you love. I'm getting to do everything that I've wanted to do since I was a kid. And I get to see my friends who I don't get to see all the time. I get to go to cool places in the country that, most people that I know have never even been to or heard of. I get to visit my favorite stores and coffee places and food places across the country and in different parts of the world. And, that's all positives. That's all fun. It's all good. I'd say the negatives is just like being gone from home sometimes for too long, and coming back and just feeling like a little bit of an outsider looking in, because you just kind of miss out on a lot of things, and miss out on family events. And like this past year, we missed Thanksgiving. I miss Easter almost every single year, even though, like, I'm not very religious, and neither is my family, but it's still just like a day for family to me. And like, that's the way we've always looked at it, is just a day to spend together. And I miss it like almost every single year, and it's just like the downside of, touring is really just seeing sometimes your relationships with people fall apart. And that doesn't even mean necessarily like a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship or something like that, but even your relationships with your friends and your family and different things. And I've definitely have had that happen over the last 2.5 years of touring. And it's been a little bit more of a struggle to like be two different people, and be the guy who's on the road touring, and then also have to try my best to be the guy who is back in Wilkes-Barre but isn't actually there, like just trying to connect and trying to keep up with everybody. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's hard, especially when you're going like 8 months out of the year. I remember all of my friends who were full-time touring musicians for a long time. You would just never see them. And then when you actually would, it would be like, oh yeah, hey, I remember you.
Yeah, and you lose that like connection, I think sometimes, unless you're like
Yeah.
talking to them daily or and with some people, I have friends back home where I might not see them for 6 months at a time, but every time I see them, it's like I just saw them yesterday. And that's just like how it all will always be. And that's just how that relationship is with that friend. But with some of my other friends, it's like you almost get forgotten about because you're just gone so much that like they don't even bother to hit you up anymore because they're just like assuming that you're not even home. So it's just kind of balancing the life of being away and life at home and trying to find be that person who's able to intertwine both and still do the thing that you love but also you know be a good friend and a good partner and everything like that. It's like it's important.
I saw you post on Twitter recently. I'm paraphrasing, but it was something to the effect of, this new record isn't a title fight or this or that. Everything is for Wilkes-Barre. This is for Wilkes-Barre. So it sounds like you still have a lot of hometown pride, which is good. But do you get like a lot of title fight comparisons? I mean, I know they're from like the same general area and they're like a legendary band from that area, but do people make that comparison a lot? Is it off base? Does it get annoying at all?
It definitely it happens more often than not, and it's been happening more often with the newer stuff. And because of Giants Despair being what people think is a title fight reference, but it's literally just like an overlook in Wilkes-Barre that like if you were a kid growing up in Wilkes-Barre, you've been to that overlook. Like it's just a very like it's a place that like everyone used to go to all the time. And like we named the record or the song Giant Despair because it just fit the song. It wasn't because Title Fight put a small reference of it in Flood of 72 or like Gypsy named their record Giants Despair. Like it's just because it's a Wilkes-Barre thing. That's where those bands got it from. So like the Title Fight comparison has been a little bit of a like, it's awesome because it's a band that we love and a band that we look up to and a band that we've been going to see since we were kids. But it is hard to not feel like there's always a looming shadow of like the band that's always like better than your band will be, or like you're always being compared to, when I just want OSC just to be like just OSC. That's it. I don't want there to be a comparison. I want it just to be like, that's the band and that's who they are. The comparisons don't matter. The influences don't matter. They are just 100% them.
Right. Well, I think you're there. I certainly think OSC stands on its own and will so even more after All You Embrace comes out.
Yeah, I'm really excited to put it out. I think putting out these first two singles have definitely given me like a lot of like confidence, I would say. And even just writing the record, like the whole time we were writing and recording the record, we were just kept saying to each other, like mainly me, Ross and Coleman, we were just like, this just feels special. And I don't really know what it is. I don't know if it's just us having a deep connection to what we're doing or what it is, but it just feels like we're creating something special that hopefully people will connect with. And that's all we really want, is we just want people to connect to what we do in, whatever way that they do, even if they connect to the lyrics in a different way than I wrote them. I just want I want people to feel something from the record, and I definitely feel something from the record when I listen to it. So hopefully people, have the same feelings.
I think they will. Based on what I've heard, I love it. Maybe even record of the year potential.
Oh,
what do we think of that?
You. I don't know. Maybe we'll see what else comes out. I think it's going to be hard with the new Knocked Loose record coming out and stuff like that too. I don't know what else is coming out this year, but I know that record's definitely going to be big. We talked with Isaac a lot about that recently too, so I'm stoked to hear that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out already. So I do like a best records of the year at the end of every year on the show. But this year, I remembered that I'm supposed to do that. So I'm actually keeping track of all of my contenders, right? So that I don't have to struggle at the end of the year, and there's already like 5 records on it, so it's going to be tough to pick 10 favorites this year. But
Yeah.
look, I think All You Embrace could be there. I really love what I've heard so far.
Dude, yeah, I think if anyone, including yourself, if anyone is really liking the way that the first 2 songs have been, and I really think you will enjoy the entire record as a whole. I'm super proud of it, and I'm very excited to finally share it with people.
Awesome. Well, everybody, the record will be out by the time you hear this, so make sure you pick it up. And Ryan, is there anything else you want to announce? Any tours or anything else?
At this point, you'll definitely already know. We're gonna do trio tour leg 2 out to the West Coast and down through Texas and stuff like that, and we're gonna do a proper Wilkes-Barre record release. And yeah, we haven't played home in a while, so we're gonna put on for the scene and do something really, really special, I hope.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Ryan, look, I've been seeing the band for a long time. I love it. I was really impressed with you guys in New York City, and I'm looking forward to more. So thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
And there you have it, Ryan Savitski. Talking to Ryan makes me think a lot about when I was younger. I remember being 20 years old, and I was going to go out on my first national tour, and I was selling merch for a band. That band being This Day Forward. Who was it on that tour? It was This Day Forward, Hope's Fall was on a piece of that, Open Hand, and Not Waving But Drowning. The year 2002. I think that was a full US. And I dropped out of college to go on that tour. I was still living at home. I didn't have any idea about what I was going to do with my future. I don't even know if I was thinking about that at all. And I just really respect people like Ryan who figure out what they want to do when they're young. And he did it. He's doing it. He stuck with it. And here we are 7 years later from when One Step Closer first started. And they've come a long way as a band. And they've been one of my favorites since I first heard them back in 2019. And since I saw them that first time at This Is Hardcore in 2019. I remember they opened with a cover of Burning Fight. And they also covered Turning Point. And I was like, yeah, these guys know what's going on. So what do we think? All You Embrace, the new record from One Step Closer. What do we think? Album of the summer? It's definitely, without a question, one of the best records of the year. This is the One Step Closer I've been waiting for. I love the new melodic elements in their sound. I just think the sky is the limit for this band. But I think it might be album of the summer for sure. I like that Blink-182 is an influence for newer hardcore and punk bands. I like that Anxious draws from that well. I like that One Step Closer draws from that well because Blink is good. Come on, that 3-album run of Enema to Take Off Your Pants to self-titled, you can't beat that. Can't. But All You Embrace is really, really excellent. You have to check it out. You have to. My favorite songs from the record. Here we go. Giant's Despair. By far my favorite track. Also, Orange Leaf, Leap Years, and The Gate. But the whole thing is excellent. And it was great to catch up with Ryan. I wish him and the band continued success. So thank you so much, Ryan, for coming on the show. So let's check in, everybody. How are we doing? I'm doing good. It's Sunday as I record this in the afternoon. It's been the busiest weekend of my life. Friday night, I went to see Disparager. Now, Disparager features the great John Lane on drums, and I was in the Darling Fire with him. They played at the Kingsland here in Brooklyn, and it also happened to be John's birthday. So happy birthday to you, John, and awesome gig. Glad that was his first gig with Disparager too, and I just happened to be there for that one, so that was cool. And then after that, I jetted over to the Dosser gig. Now, you remember Dosser? They've been on this podcast. Will Teague from Dosser was on episode 183. They're like a newer shoegaze alt band. They were playing across town at the Meadows in Brooklyn. I went over there, but the show was already over, so I'll have to catch them next time. And things did not slow down Saturday. I went to another gig at night, but listen, Saturday was like the busiest day of my entire life. I got up early in the morning, ran a mile, did some dumbbell exercises, and then I laid down and I was like, I'm not going to practice. I can't do it. I'm too tired. And then I was like, I have to. So I got up, went to the practice space, redid my whole pedal board and redid the Velcro and switched all the pedals around so that they make more sense for what I need to do in our set. And then I practiced the whole set, got home, and I was like, I'm too tired. I can't go to the Hope Conspiracy gig. But I was like, no, I have to. This is their first show in like 12 years. So yes, the Hope Conspiracy played with This Is Hell and Umbra Vitae this past Saturday in Brooklyn. I think they also played Boston and Philly, if I'm not mistaken. So I went to that show. I think Harm Wolf opened the show. That's George from Blacklisted's band. I didn't know there was 4 bands on the gigs. I didn't get there till 7 o'clock, I think, because I fell asleep right before. So I got there during This Is Hell, caught some of them, really liked that. And then I saw Umbra Vitae. That's Jake Bannon's band with members of the Red Chord and Hatebreed and a million other bands. They were really awesome. They played some stuff from the new record, Light of Death, and I really liked it a lot. Anti-Spirit Machine. That's the hit from the new record. I love that song. They closed with that. That's the one for me. But the whole record's good, so make sure you check out Umbra Vitae. Good timing, too, because Jake was just on the show last week. And, of course, the Hope Conspiracy. Now, this was a unbelievably good set. It's like they never went away. I hadn't seen them since 2002, I think. Somewhere around there. This is when shows were still going on at Palanca Park in Bensalem, PA. Some of you remember that place. That's where I saw them last. And it was phenomenal. Huge energy, unrelenting, crowd going off. Everybody was super tight. I mean, these guys must have put in a lot of work for these shows. It was awesome. A+. So if you have the opportunity to go see them, I don't know if they have more shows planned. I forget already from when I spoke to Kevin recently. But if you can see them, make sure you go do it. Now, I won't spoil the set list. I like to be surprised by the set list. I don't like to look it up or hear about it. I'm not going to tell you exactly what's in it, but I will say it does err on the side of newer stuff. You know, I'm talking 2006 to the present, and all of that stuff is good, but there is some surprises, so it's worth your time. Excellent show. Now it's Sunday, and I wanted a day to do nothing, but that's not going to happen because there's a lot of podcast work to do. Oh, and before I get to podcast updates, I've been talking to a lot of people on Instagram, and, they're saying, remind me, Keith, to never stand near you at a show, or I don't want to stand near you because I always rant about people standing 1 centimeter from my face. Now, I know some of you are kidding. I know it's jokes, but I want to clarify the thing about people standing near me at shows. Now, I don't mind if people stand near me at shows. I've met listeners of the show. I've made friends through the show. I've met people at shows. I've talked to people. I've met and talked to people who have been on the show. And I love all of that. That's great. I like that, especially because I go to a lot of shows by myself. However, my issue is specifically with drunk, wild people flailing around near me, or my biggest pet peeve, this always seems to happen to me, someone standing 1 centimeter in front of my face, and that person has about 100 feet in front of them. They could take 2 steps forward, 3 steps forward, and be fine. They could move up, but they stand right in front of me, 1 centimeter from my face, and I can't back up because there's people behind me, but there they are, 1 centimeter in front of my face. That always seems to happen to me, no matter what show I go to, no matter when, no matter how. It just always happens. But I'm happy to report that all the gigs I went to this past weekend, it did not happen. So Maybe the curse is broken. I don't know. We'll have to see. But the busy weekend is winding down, sort of. I guess I'm just doing podcast stuff now for the rest of the day, and that's, it's not too strenuous, but let's talk about Apple Podcast and Spotify reviews. We are on the push to 300 reviews. We need 300 reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We're currently at 215 on Apple and 262 on Spotify. It must be harder to get Apple Podcast reviews. I don't know why, because those are always behind. Maybe a lot of people don't listen on Apple Podcasts, but I think they do according to the stats, or maybe most people don't have iPhones. I don't know, but here's what I want you to do. If you have an iPhone, open up your podcast app, search the new scene, scroll down a bit, and there's the rating system, the stars, hit the 5-star button. And if you write a review, you can write a review in that section. I'll read it here during the end of the show. And on Spotify, it's easy. You just search the New Scene podcast, and right up top, there's the rating system. Hit that 5-star button. And listen, if you've rated on Spotify but not Apple, go do it on Apple too, and vice versa. We need to get to 300. We have to. So thank you everyone who has submitted a rating. Thank you everyone for your support of the show. I appreciate every single one of you. And that's all I've got for this week. I'm tired. I'm worn out. I need a break. And hopefully I'll get one soon. Maybe next weekend. I think next weekend is going to be slower. So I'm looking forward to that. Summer's not a great time of year for me, but I don't feel horrible. The weather's been pretty nice. I just like sitting here working, cool breeze coming in the window. You catch a whiff of that summer air. It's nice so far. It's not too hot yet. So I like it. So thank you for tuning in this week. We are going to end the show with a band I've talked about before, but I always listen to them around this time of year. The band is Castavet. The album is Summer Fences. The song is called Plays One on TV. I'll add it to the New Scene 2024 Spotify playlist. Find that playlist on Spotify, like it. I put all of my recommendations there. I put all of the bands associated with that year of the show in that playlist. So go check it out. I'm back next week with a new episode and a new guest. So I'll see you then.